businesses involving guest groups and multiple visitors. Gentlemen, we have a young lady, Stacy Witchell. She is with Project Manager for Evergreen Solutions that drove up today from Florida to be with us. I asked her, was she evacuating, and she said, no, she got to turn and go back tomorrow. So,
might be back on Thursday, though. We'll see.
Yeah, you may get evacuated. She's out of Tallahassee, so prayers be with her and the family and all the residents in that area. All right, sure.
Right. Let me switch gears. I'm going to come, is it if I stand up here with this?
Absolutely.
I can drive from there. That'll work. All right, well, my name is Stacy Witchell with Evergreen. Thank you all for having me here today to present to you the class and comp study that we conducted for the county. I'm going to do an overview of the presentation of our project. If you have questions along the way, please stop or hold to the end, whichever one you prefer. All right? All right. So this presentation is going to be an overview. I'm going to kind of walk you through the phases of the project, what we did internally, what we did on the external part of the project, and then bring you to the recommendations and then that next step. Now, your goals of this project were to review your current class and comp structure, to compare what you have currently to your peer organizations, to see where you stand as far as competitiveness with the market, to provide you recommendations that meet your needs, that builds you a plan that gives minimum and maximums for all of your classifications and creates a pay grade structure for you, and then develop also a performance evaluation tool that the county can be also used moving forward. Now, one thing that was on that slide that I will mention too, as far as goals, one of my goals for a comp plan that we work on with anybody is to make sure that it's got flexible moving forward, so it meets your needs now. You're not going to outgrow it in a couple of years, so it's got some growth in it for you. And also, it's fiscally sustainable. You know, it's 25 years of public sector service, so you'll still hear me say we a lot. You know, very conscientious of making sure it's a plan that you guys can afford now and moving forward into the next year or two as well. I don't want you to be in a bind. All right, so the study began back in March 2022. That's when we collected all of your data. And all our projects begin with data collection. So we look at what you have currently in place, what does your structures look like, how many people do you have, where do they break out across departments, is there compression that we can recognize? Those are all the types of things that we're looking at on the front end when we do that data collection. So I want to understand the strengths of what you've got and the weaknesses of your current plan. When we collected your data, you had just shy of 300 employees, so 293. Remember, it's a snapshot in time. HR data, staffing data is not static. That changes quite often with people coming and going, raises, promotions. So at the point in time we collected the data, 293 employees, you were using 122 classification titles, and you didn't have what we would call a formal compensation structure. You have positions that have been created over time to fit needs, and they had kind of changed and evolved over time, but you didn't have a structure in place that kind of carried forward from one pay grade to the next, with all classifications assigned to pay grade. All right, so that was that primary goal for me, is to give that to you guys moving forward. Another part of what we do internally is conduct employee outreach. So my consultant, Kristen Gilly, came up and she held focus groups. Talked to quite a few staff members that covered all the different departments, a cross-section of all the different classifications. And those focus groups allow us to get a better understanding of kind of what the current conditions are, what things people think are working well, what are the concerns, and understand a little bit better about what employees' kind of perceptions are and requests are moving forward. We always start these questions off with, what brought you to work here? Why are you here? Why have you stayed? And so what you'll see there is location. You guys have got a strong tie to the community here with your employees. A lot of folks from the area, born and raised, multi-generation in some cases. So they like to have that connection to the community. Retirement and benefits was a big draw. Work environment, stability, and job security. Seeing that a lot more, especially with the uncertainties that kind of COVID has brought about, kind of the economy, where that is, that's highly valued with your staff. And then what are they looking for as far as maybe opportunities for improvement to do some things differently moving forward. Some of the things that were brought up is they felt like they weren't as competitive with their salaries when you look around at some of your peers around you. Job descriptions have evolved over time and just need to be updated to kind of fit what those jobs are currently doing. Staffing shortages, and some of them felt that was due to lower pay. I'll tell you, just like every other public sector, there's a shortage of people applying for positions. And so, is it pay? Potentially, but it's also, I think there's a smaller population of folks applying for jobs. Training ground for other counties. So I joke about this with some of our Florida counties as well, some of the best farm leagues, right? You've got rural counties where you're wearing multiple hats, you're doing different things. You're a great training ground for somebody else to hire you away because you've had so many different things you've been a part of and a lot of this varied experience that's valuable to other folks. And over and over again, appreciative of a generous benefit package that you have here. Next thing that we do internally is conduct what we call our job assessment tool. The job assessment tool is a survey that was administered to all staff. Everybody had an opportunity to fill this out. It's a work survey, a work study. We're asking questions on the 5 job factors that you see up there. And we're asking people questions about, what is their level of authority, their complexity, decision making that they have with their position with the county based on their input, and the supervisors do have an opportunity to review and provide comments on top of that. It lets us create a hierarchy of all of your classifications so that we can then slot them accordingly, all in relation to each other. So everything from beginning entry level to upper level leadership. We began that back in April. All employees had, it says 2 weeks, it was about 2 weeks, give or take a few days here or there for employees to fill that out. Supervisors then had an opportunity to review and comment on top of. Not change anything that their employees submitted, but they can add additional comments or support what their employees submitted. We've got about a 52% completion rate across all classifications, and at a minimum, I'm looking for at least 45–50%, so you guys exceeded that. And then when we go through that, like I mentioned earlier, we're using that to create a hierarchy. So we do that. We create a hierarchy, look at the career classifications you have, look at the career paths that you have in place, and then we give that back to your project team here to take a look at. What we're looking at as a paper exercise, does it represent and match functionally how people are operating, or do we need to make any adjustments? That's going to form one of the bases for us to use for your solution file later on, the recommendation. Now, external, this is where we're looking at your peers. So what you see up there, these are the peers that we surveyed to get class data from them, class and comp data, so we could determine what are they currently paying, what do those ranges look like, and how do your salaries compare. Because in a lot of instances, I didn't really have minimums and maximums for everything to work with. We can find out what they're using, and I can look at your average actuals, we call them, to figure out how to build your plan moving forward. We do adjust these for cost of living. We always run cost of living numbers because we want to make sure my value of the dollar is matching up. So 70 classifications were included as your benchmarks. So I'm going to run regression analysis later on to build your solution file. So I don't need every single one of them. I need enough good data points to build your file later. We collected 318 data points that we're able to use for your regression model. We developed market salary rate. We had market salary ranges for 49 of those classifications that we could compare against and determine. Okay, so where we did have some ranges, that's what we could use to compare ranges to. For your ones that are flat rates or a few variables, I didn't have a full min-max. That asterisk says outliers. Whenever I'm looking at salary data, if something is outside of a 40% from where you're at, we'll give you the numbers in the tables, but we don't include them in a model because it's just too far outside, it'll skew your numbers. So we exclude anything outside of 40%. Before I jump into benefits, just to let you know, with all of your classifications and collected data on, there's a table in your report where you've got minimum, mid, and max. That's the aggregate results from all of those different peers. And also in that table, you're also going to see what we call that range spread. so you can see that average range spread for each of those different titles too, so it helps us determine how to set yours. All right, I will say that you had about 25 to 30 different classifications that were found to be compensated below the market minimum. So that lets us know we do need to make some adjustments when we're building your plan to make you a little bit more competitive than where you currently are. Now for benefits, for your benefit data, for the basics, right, the retirement, the leave, the health insurance, on average you guys were more competitive and offered a better package overall than those peers. All right, where we did see some difference were some of the fringe, so some of those other things that people offer, tuition reimbursement, sometimes it's different disability insurances and where that county or that peer is paying full or partial. There's other hybrid work-at-home options. There's some other things that people are doing around you right now that I think may be a little bit more competitive than where you're at. But for the standard retirement and the insurance and days off time, you guys are offering a better overall package than peers. So we bring all the information in together to build you a solution file moving forward. We're going to build you a plan that's got minimums to maximums for all of your classifications. We're going to assign classifications to a pay grade, and then we're going to give you a consistent or a plan that lets you move through with your grade progressions in a way that makes sense for each of those classifications. All right, we're also going to build you what we call an open range system, not a step system. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a step system or not, if you've seen them before, but we're going to build you an open range system to provide you with the flexibility you have moving forward, to move forward with it. In looking at your classifications, we did recommend some updates to classification titles, really more for just to reflect what the position's doing and then some contemporary updates. All right. Compensation changes. We're going to put you guys in two plans. We're going to have one we call our general pay plan. That's where the bulk of the staff are going to be, bulk of your classifications are going to be. And then the second pay plan for sheriff, jail, 911. We're going to put those guys in one pay plan by themselves. Your general pay plan is going to have 20 pay grades. So all those classifications will be assigned to a pay grade. All right? 60% range spread with each of those pay grades. That's from minimum to maximum. Sheriff and jail, 16 pay grades, and again with a 60% range spread.
I assume that E911 includes the EMS, the ambulance, and all that?
They're in that second one. We had moved them. Kristen had moved. Didn't we move EMS under that sheriff's tab? Yes, we took it out of general.
We took them out of general, moved them over. Yeah, typically what you'll see with the sheriff plan, the EMS plans, those are usually where you don't have all your 2080 people.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted that clarified.
Yeah, sorry. So here's your general employees pay plan. I know it's small numbers on the PowerPoint, but it would start with grades 101, go down to 120, so there would be your 20 pay grades. Your proposed minimum would be starting at that 27, and 120, your proposed minimum starts at 75,000. That's a 60% range spread for each one of those pay grades. So from minimum to maximum, it's 60% between the 2 points. All right? And then what you see on the other side, the grade progression. Grade progression is that distance between one pay grade to the next. So between 101 and 102, it's 5%. 102 to 103, it's 5%. And it goes down like that until you get to the bottom at 116, where we created a little bit more space between some of those higher, more complex level positions. Okay? Now for your sheriff, jail, EMS plan there, 31.2 is at 201, that's $15 an hour, that's what 31.2 is. 216 brings you down to 60,000. Again, 60% range spread. Your grade progression here is 5% between each. Okay, so a consistent structure and managed, you can kind of go through, out, it's transparent, people can see what pay grades they're on, and they can see the distance between pay grades. Now, whenever you're putting forth a new pay plan, you got to figure out how you're going to implement this plan. And we did run a bunch of different scenarios for you. We did land on what we're gonna call the hybrid adjustment. So the hybrid adjustment does a couple of different things. The first thing it's gonna do is make sure that every individual is making at least the minimums of the new pay grade assignment, okay? That's the first step, that's the first calculation we run. And then what we're gonna do is look at tenure and look at time. The first step here is looking at class year, and so for how many years has that individual been in their classification, all right? And we're gonna build, like I said, a regression model. So I'm doing a regression analysis on this, and we're basing it on a 30-year career. So based on how long they've been in their classification, across the 30-year career, where would that model anticipate their salary should be? And then we place them accordingly, all right? Now, when you're doing a hybrid year model, there's a couple of different options you have with that. You're looking at hire dates and class dates. And it allows you to value not just that time in class, but we can prorate it based on total tenure time as well, okay? So you're still building on the classification date. And then implement it to make sure that all the recommended adjustments are in line with county policy. Now what you'll see here for this one is the estimate, and remember these are estimates because it's based off a snapshot of data, is $889 to bring everybody to your new plan and get everybody in a competitive place for you guys moving forward. So you're in line with that 50th percentile, so top of the bell curve. 50% of people above you, 50% behind you. It would impact 190 employees. Average salary adjustment, $4,600. That's not everybody, it's an average, so some less, some more, some little to nothing, okay? Because they're already where market anticipates their salary should be. So on average, it's about a 13% adjustment. Again, some people are no adjustment, some people a little bit more than 13. So moving forward, recommendations are to adopt the proposed class changes that we've had, look at the pay plans as well, adopt those, implement that pay plan based on that recommendation, and move all of your staff members over to their new classifications and pay grade assignments. Update current job descriptions. That's something we're actually going to be doing with you guys still, is working to clean up and update all your job descriptions. So we'll have them all current to reflect what we've done here in the study. And then moving forward, conduct small-scale surveys to keep this current so it doesn't get away from you. If you do spot checking annually on a handful of classifications, that should keep you current for the most part. And if you're doing that spot check on an annual basis, you shouldn't need a comprehensive one for another 5 to 7 years. All right? And then public sector documents, review, revise, update regularly to keep them current and relevant. Last step is we'll work with your staff here to provide training and methodology and how to grade these positions moving forward. Update those job descriptions, and then also update with and finalize that performance evaluation tool. We're working on a draft of that right now, and so we'll get that finalized here very shortly. So post-hurricane, let me get to the hurricane first.
Very good.
Anybody have any questions?
No, it sounds good to me. That's something ever since I've been one of the commissioners that I saw that we needed to do, and I'm glad we have done it now.
Good.
How impactful was it, the steps that this board has taken last year and the year before with the EMS and 911 increases?
Yeah, I mean, specifically about some of those are positions, what you guys have done there for that to make this much more competitive, you've done a really good thing. Those are classifications that I see in other areas that people are struggling. They really are. And I would say the adjustments that you've made to get you to where you need to be are in line with what I've seen in other places. So, hopefully that's continued to make a big difference for you guys. Yeah. And then moving forward, even outside of those, looking at the structure moving forward, I think it's a very transparent structure. People can see where they're at, why they're where they are, what those earning potentials are in each of those classifications. Everybody's assigned to a pay grade.
So $13 an hour is our minimum starting wage now. I guess this question will be from Ms. Dave and Ms. Todd. You've incorporated the wage surveys into our 23 satisfied, and here specifically for Tracy, are you satisfied with the feedback that you got from our employees? And the reason I ask that is somewhere down the line, somebody's not gonna be happy with anything everyone else does. And so we had employee involvement through the interview process. I noticed that we only, what was it, 52%?
For the online, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but here again, employees, not just supervisory personnel, but people on the line had the opportunity for input.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
The majority of the 13s also are looked at as, I would say the majority of those are seasonal help,
Right.
not necessarily full-time employees.
Yeah,
Or part-time. I mean, there's still some, but it's very minute, less than 5 probably, that would be looked at as a brand-new full-time position. Most of those are gonna come in at 15, 16, 17, depending on what that role is that's open that day. But the 13 is primarily seasonal.
Right.
The performance evaluations, I know that you're working on those now. So their first use would be next year in 2023? Is that right, Trey?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
May I ask one, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
On our job descriptions, a couple things we've wrestled with over the years. Will they include exempt or non-exempt, and also essential functions for ADA purposes?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's gonna have all that on it. Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll take your current, what you have currently, we're gonna take those JET responses, because some of those questions we asked when they were getting at that, and then look at the essential levels, what they're performing at, look at the salaries to determine FLSAs, and then make sure your essentials are on there as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're creating new positions, we'll provide you that template with as much information as we can, and then if they will have it to kind of fill in the rest of it, that will be very specific to you guys.
Yeah, there's still a little bit of ongoing, the main thing that we had asked for up front because of the budget, we was trying to get all the numbers nailed down. Now they're backing up and completing the job description area. We sat down prior to this meeting and looked over a new template. Ms. Whitchell, Evergreen Solutions has done a fantastic job on this. Catherine, is that right, Catherine? Kristen, I always call her.
Okay.
Pleasure to work with. I know she has been on the phone with Tracy, multiple phone calls, Missy, Christina, myself. Absolutely stunning to work with, are just phenomenal to work with. She, very responsive. You know, there was a time when we were putting budget numbers together or had an employee that we needed to fill a role, but we knew we needed to try to get it close, how to go out. She worked on that role that day and got me a number back within 4 hours of like, you need to start out at this. This is what I'm seeing in the trend. So we didn't have to reinvent the wheel in just a few more months. So Evergreen was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
appreciate
thank you for what you've done.
You're welcome. We're here for the next year, so if you've got questions, technical questions, want to know about a position that you're creating and kind of where to place that and how to grade it out, we're here, so just give us a call. All right?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. All right. Well, like I said, do this.
So
Disconnect, right?
we should all work that. So
Thank you. There we go.
Increase that we've made in services.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
7:50 to 8:30. I mean, it just cut the curve off so much, doing what we've done over the past year and a half. If not, we've been looking at 1.5, 2. Christina, do we have a work session between now and October 2nd?
Between now and October when?
No, never mind. Yeah, it just dawned on me that proclamation is on my desk.
Yeah, well, it was my understanding that it was during tonight's meeting, but they wanted to pre-record it as a Zoom.
Yeah, so gentlemen, you'll see a proclamation naming October 2nd through the 8th Mental Health Awareness Week. I drew a line through it because it turns out that was a pre-recorded meeting where I read the proclamation, and then they're gonna actually post it on their site for us. It wasn't something we needed to do here.
Very good.
It turns out that Mayor Kelly Gertz done the proclamation night word for word for what ours was.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, so he ended up reading it, I didn't. Chairman's report. Comprehensive Plan Public Workshop, Thursday, September 29th at 6 p.m. at Jackson EMC Building on Spratlin Mill Road. Please join us for a community meeting for the future of Madison County and its cities. Free tire disposal event starts October 1st through November 5th at the Madison County Transfer Station. This event is only for Madison County citizens, up to 10 tires per citizen. I do think it excludes businesses. This is for personal. You could drop off your tires on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, from 8 to 4:30. Madison County is hosting a hiring event on September 28th from 9 a.m. At 9 a.m. at the old gym located behind the government complex. There'll be a banner at the end of the road also directing. Voter registration deadline for November 8, 2022. General special election will be October 11th, 2022. If you would like to register to vote or update any addresses, name changes, please contact the Board of Elections and or Registrar's Office, 706-795-6355. The Madison County Library is having a yard sale November 12th, 2022 to raise funds to local community readers. This event will be from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. Basketball registrations are now open at the Madison County Rec Department until November 6th, ages 5 through 17. You can register online at the Madison County Rec Department website. The 2023 Local Maintenance and Improvement Grant application has been approved from the Georgia Department of Transportation. The county will receive $808,000 in funding for road improvement projects. One thing that I left off this was, I forgot. There was something else I needed to tell you. Oh, burn ban goes into lists October 1st. For some, it never was in place because over the past 2 weeks we have run our volunteer firemen to death with fires. It's got out of control. There's been several injuries lately. One was an air flight from a burn victim that was burning. The rules are the same every year. Burn bans go into effect, burn bans go off. Please pay attention to them, but I'm not encouraging anybody to go out and set fires in their backyard on October 1st. The way the state of Georgia does it now is there is no more pre-recorded burn permits. Zach, you may want to verify me on this. You don't have to call in anymore and announce you're doing it. I think it's a catastrophe at the state level for that not to be required, because all it's going to do is now run our local volunteer firemen. Every time somebody smells smoke, they're going to call in and say, hey, I smell a burn, and they're going to page out everybody when all they had to do was leave a 911 address, call it in and say, I smell smoke, and they said, yes, it's your neighbor burning leaves, but now we're just going to send out the troops. So not happy about that at the state level, but we're going to relook at that.
Can we not do that anyway locally?
Maybe. I mean, you'd have to have a local referendum stating that you still got to call for a burn permit, but
I'm not come up for the permit, but just to report the fact that you are burning.
Unless there's something in the state statute, which I admit I haven't read, it would preempt us, we could do it locally.
Yeah.
You want us to take a look at that?
I mean, I think it's worthy. I mean, with diesel fuel at $5 a gallon, I hate to burden our volunteers more than already need be just because somebody's burning leaves. I would ask citizens to at least call in. It's a non-emergency 911 number. You just leave a message.
Yeah, I mean, at a minimum, we could do it as a voluntary thing.
Yeah, volunteer purpose.
Provided as a community service.
Yeah. I want to emphasize the Madison County, the public workshop for the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan study is working very well. There's been a lot of input, and it's all been taken in and documented. Even when you done it online, I know that there's a setup date. I don't remember the exact one, but I think they'll be speaking at the Rotary coming up. October 28th, at the Rotary. Maryland Hall will be there. Please take an opportunity to attend. And if nothing more, come out to the community sites, Jackson MC, September 29th at 6 p.m. Let your voice be heard of what you would like to see Madison County look like.
There's 4 more of those community meetings, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. 4.
We have one at Sanford on October 20th.
And I think they're adding a couple. The one we know about at the Rotary. Yeah. I feel like that Hall Consultants has not only went above and beyond to reach out to as many as they can, but it's our duty as citizens to give our input when asked. This is not government doing it. We're asking you for your input, so please take advantage of that. All right, with that being said, statements and remarks from citizens on tonight's agenda. Anybody? Nobody. All right. Old business. Consider approving the service delivery strategy plan. Gentlemen, we went over this last week. I think Derek requested an overview sheet. I'll ask for a motion to approve the service delivery strategy.
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kirk, second by Commissioner Adams. Any discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none. Mr. Chandler?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Consider appointing Ms. Heather Hanley to the Library Board of Trustees. Somebody like to come forward on that one? Hey, young lady.
Hello, good evening. Could we actually do the next two items together? They're
Absolutely.
kind of tight. Okay.
So consider appointing Ms. Sarah Bird to the Library Board of Trustees along with Ms. Heather Hanley.
Correct. So we had a vacancy already on the library board. After the October meeting, Harry Rice will be retiring from the board here. And we've had these two candidates come forth. Ms. Hanley is the school media specialist, at Isla Elementary School, and Ms. Hanley is the school media specialist at Colbert Elementary School. We think these would both be very fine candidates. The entire current board has looked at both candidates and request that you appoint them to our Board of Trustees.
Ladies back here.
Yes, that's
Ms. Bird and Ms. Hanley here.
They are here.
All right, ladies, you know we do background checks now. When Mr. Rice was put on, they didn't do those. That's how we ended up with it for so long.
Yeah.
So is this your wishes?
Yes, yes.
All
You're not
right.
being coerced into this.
Taking a plea?
Well, I will tell both of you, it would be an honor to have you. We have a fine library system here in the county. It's been well run for many years. The board has always been top notch. And with that being said, ask for a motion to appoint Ms. Hanley and Ms. Bird to the Library Board of Trustees.
Both these qualities be added to the Board of Trustees.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Chandler. I have a second by Commissioner Kirk. Any discussion, gentlemen?
Just want to say thank you for volunteering yourself.
Yes.
Absolutely. No other discussion? Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
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 Welcome aboard and thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
this concludes my business with this illustrious board. I am now off of anything that has authority in the county, and no, I'm not running for nothing.
But I'll believe it when I see it, when you're not in here about something.
If I'm in here on something, just, tell Mike to keep an eye on it.
No, shut, you can't let him.
Yeah, you're gonna sit through the rest of this, sir.
No, he ain't.
I was planning to.
You have nowhere to be.
If I stay here, I may come up with comments.
Wait, who's gonna speak for the goats if you leave?
That's why I've gotta leave.
Hey, Harry, the thing about it is, since you're not gonna be back, well, we appreciate all that you have done and hope you have a good retirement. All right?
I'm going to excuse.
Judge, you said you would not run for any other board. You did not
That's
say
a
that you would not.
Also.
Ah, okay. So, Zach, I will give you permission to have the headline say that a heated dispute broke out between Judge Rice and the Board of Commissioners of whether he was to be appointed. But it has been a pleasure.
Yeah, do as you wish, sir.
It's always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And it has been a pleasure to serve over, I was thinking about it on the way here, it's been over 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah. So, that's enough.
You haven't changed a bit.
Oh, no, not one bit. Thank you, sir.
They don't make them like that no more, ladies and gentlemen.
I heard that, thank you.
I said they beat the bowl maker.
Oh.
All right, discuss amending the zoning ordinance, section 7.3, rural residential. This is, for us to discuss. Christopher, you wanna come on up? Might as well.
I'll go ahead and start with the question.
This is not for the vote tonight, this is a discussion, gentlemen.
So, all right, can you just give me a quick synopsis of why we're doing it?
Yes, sir. RR for years and years wasn't used appropriately, and it replaced ag residential. So it was used to encroach residential into just direct, intense agriculture, which is what an A2 and A1 was. It was just whether or not it was a CAFO. So we didn't open it up, and with using RR, when they changed it over from ag residential, they closed it to the hobby farmers. You either had to have enough property to be considered for commercial use to start your practice, or you were home-based and locked in. So with using this, we have made it to where there is no non-conforming RR practice in existence. But, you know, it has everything RR did and a little more. And it'll suit the gears of the county as a little more grease, to work together between, say, an R1 and an A2. It'll help open up that ability, in the unincorporated county, and also between our incorporated cities and where they buffer up to us. We've had, I'm gonna throw Mike under the bus here, we've had legal counsel make sure that the approvals were legally sound as well. And after the comp plan, it also affords us the availability to see whether or not an entirely new zone may or may not be brought to occurrence, like a general residential at that point in time. This gives us sound footing as a county as a whole, moving forward into receiving from Hall Consulting the comp plan, and being able to adjust as the future hits us.
And, Ms. Patrick sent out, I think it was just today, but she sent us a red line version that was very helpful to see the changes.
So there's a lot of red, but it's just essentially the same verbiage with either an extra or mixed in. Those are very technical legal terms. As Mike tells me all the time, yeah. So we made sure to fit those in there for you.
Well, there's a state law that I've come unglued about recently that left off two letters that would have solved a lot of it, the A versus any. If it just felt the word any, we wouldn't have spent weeks trying to figure out what A meant. Well, that's, yeah, we'll get in that, we won't talk about that.
We'll vote on this next meeting.
Yeah, public hearing.
I do believe, Christopher, on this, that I think this board needs to be, you said it a minute ago, but it's more of a step-by-step process. You know, once we get this, then we'll be able to open up, some of the more of the zoning classifications, going from one type of zoning to the other, potentially an A2 to an RR, an A2 to a AR. What I'm envisioning in this, and the reason it was brought up, was, well, I'll just use Pioli, for example. Someone comes in from out of county that wants to be in a rural area, and then they realize they bought 5 acres amongst 100, and then that guy that owns that 100 acres decides to go and have it go from A2 to A1 to build chicken houses. It gives more of a foothold to diffuse partners prior to, before they come into this room. You know, this way say, well, wait a minute, you bought an AR 5 acres, you knew you were surrounded by 100 acres. This board, nor any board before you, P and Z, either one, would necessarily have the footing now to hear that argument, as you do now with rural residential, as RR stands today. Plus, it'll also, we feel like it's gonna free up, room for high school programs with an AR. Says you can have goats, or maybe you have a pig, you're in a 5 acre, and now you'll be able to enjoy those instead of having to house your animals off-site.
Yes.
This really was not designed for a subdivision use. That was not the purpose behind this. And that's why we're looking at potentially another zoning coming, whether it be a GR or an R1 expanded or something like that, or even maybe an RR with a different classification under it. So, again, this is just one step that I got to applaud Christopher, and I know you've been back reading this / paralegal over here on the side, and then Mike. I truly believe this solves a lot of problems, a lot of hidden problems and or underlying situations that we have seen in the past that could have been averted because of this.
And it will smooth out also, instead of just offering a new classification as well, it going into effect with the changes we made in A1 and A2. They'll have a little smoother transition instead of going straight into an RR, which we tried to open RR up with the first go round, and it just wasn't enough to make it smooth for the communities as a whole, not just choosing one here and one there, but the entire unincorporated county as a whole. It's gonna be the butter on the grits. Is the best way I can put it. It's not gonna do anything but help. And then those that are concerned at this point in time with keeping a more residential than a rural or an ag setup, will always have the option of an R1 instead of an RR. And then covenants for certain subdivisions, the RR subdivisions, covenants will protect them. Well, I don't want somebody to have crow and bird, or peacock. Oh, God, y'all heard peacocks. But any bird, a loud bird, say, that was covered underneath the crowing species, the covenants can handle that. And we're more than happy to help word the covenants. We don't enforce them, don't exactly write them, but we do assist.
Have you voted on this yet?
Yes.
They
4 to
voted
1.
last Tuesday.
4 to 5 to 1 or something.
Yeah, 4 to 1 in favor.
Was there discussion in P and Z about changing the acreage minimum?
We had some discussions from 5 acres or 2, and I wasn't there. I had to leave out after court on that Tuesday for a conference. But did they keep it at 2?
I think they kept it at 2.
They kept it at 2.
It's listed here as 2. I said, no, there was
Because
discussion about that, or what the thought was on it.
we've had some sidebar, or at least coming to me since I wasn't at that meeting, but I've had some sidebar come back. Do we want to offer it at 5? Well, the question is, what are we going to do with the non-conforming 5 to 1.5? So if we incorporate the 2, anything anybody's doing as an RR now would be encompassed in that. But if we do add, say, a general residential, to just give a little more grease, a little finite tuning to it, I think that might be from that 1.5 acres to the 5.
Is that, why does that ruling differ from, we went from a 5 acre minimum in A2 to 10? It went from 5 acre minimum in A1 to 25.
To 25.
So we created a lot of non-conformance there.
Yeah.
So why is that thought process different in this one?
The thought process with that was for the intense agriculture. The 25 acres, when you do the math for a 2-house layer with a residence and a stacked
I mean, I
house.
understand that, but just the thought process, we obviously created some non-conformity, and we created some non-conformity when we moved up. But you don't want to create non-conformity here.
Yeah, well, no, we tried to make everything reasonable, coming down, and with the future coming to maybe an AG and seeing where the comp plan leads us, I want to give that little adjustment room, if you will, to where we do have it to work with, to go either way, to create a new one or to hold standard to. I personally believe we'll probably have to come up with a general residential. But at this point in time, we didn't want to stop necessarily all rooftops from coming in. We wanted to still keep that residential mindset for those little, 2-acre lots that are coming out and about right now.
Which the non-conforming, whether it be legal non-conforming or illegal non-conforming, we're eventually gonna have to do mass amounts of rezones, government initiated, it won't cost the homeowner anything, just to clear our books.
Yeah.
So, I know we've got thousands, we had thousands before we started.
Yeah.
So, you know, give or take 500 more, really is not gonna be that bad if we can inevitably fix the catalog.
And we are narrowing it down. The reason why we're narrowing it down to where there's the least amount possible of legally non-conforming. I look at you because you beat it to me. Legally non-conforming parcels. So we're just working our way down the funnel, and I know we threw out, the number with, the rec department of 2024. This isn't just the moratorium. We've got projects lined up going into the 23 calendar to prep us for going into 24, which, with how we're looking with the comp plan results and with the zoning moratorium, 2024 is gonna be a paperwork heavy year, to say the least.
One thing, if I can jump in on this discussion, so in the motion next week, we'll need to clarify that all of the currently RR zoned lots will automatically become AR zoned lots.
Yeah,
They did.
I don't know that we would wanna put that in a motion, because once that motion's served, it'll go into effect immediately. Where I think if that's gonna happen, we need to adopt that AR and then mail that homeowner a letter stating that where our wishes is to change it, because that may take a Brush Creek that has 5-acre lots, that it would open
But there's
up.
no longer gonna be an RR, this is replacing RRs, really. So the second this board approves this proposed change, there is no longer an RR classification in our zoning ordinance.
You're correct. You're
It'll
correct.
replace, and that's the reason for the second draft, or that Ms. Tracy sent out today. What
Uh-huh.
she wanted was just, we had it as a complete replacement instead of that,
And it still is, right?
to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, so it sort of has, I mean,
Okay.
I'm not sure what we would have left. I was thinking, I'm just talking here.
No, that's fine.
I was thinking that the idea was to just do, and go into Commissioner Chandler's question, was to make this as seamless as possible now, and then go to that next step when you maybe introduce a general residential, or an ag, or an AR3, or whatever you wanna call. Then we'll have a new classification that you may,
That we
They
then
work with
issue
it.
letters to,
yeah.
Okay.
for that as the county action. But we didn't wanna take too drastic of a step in the moratorium with the comp plan coming up, with offering a whole new zoning that the comp plan then wouldn't be able to take into effect.
So you have everything, you've already compensated for the things that'll come into the AR that wasn't allowed in RR? And you're gonna be good with that? So you, okay. Reason I say is because if we wasn't, then you could create the AR and leave the RR and then abandon the RR later.
Which is what
And
we
that's
had
another way,
originally
it's a
leaned
possibility, yeah.
to. This is
If you
just,
thought there was any hiccups, it'd be the time to massage both
Yeah.
of them after the adoption.
Yeah.
And then just dissolve the RR.
I will say this, in our discussions, is the most cost-effective, fair way to do it across the board. And then, when we take major steps, or not trying to put words in y'all's mouth, if you decide as a board to take major steps after the comp plan, then we can do the issuing of the letters and introduction of a new, and using the comp plan to help promote that with the future land use map as well.
Well, there's so many scenarios that can play in the future and how the future's gonna change that I don't expect anything to be perfect right out the gate, even though I think we've eliminated the majority. And if something comes up, it was something unforeseen that we may have to address, either way.
From a process standpoint though, if you tried to carry both at the same time, you couldn't legally deny somebody if they wanted to apply for the whole one, if it's still legally on the hook.
Well, I think
That's true.
So
yeah.
so I guess
You would have to override it.
my you mentioned the motion for next week, I guess, just making sure I'm trying to get my head around it. For absolute clarity, I guess, we need to revoke 7.3 currently, adopt a new 7.3.
Yes, sir.
And then have the motion.
Do you want me to write up a resolution that maybe does all that?
I think
Yes,
so.
it's exhibit.
Because
I
it's
think
not,
that
I
would be
mean,
appropriate, yeah, that way it clears.
Where it go?
Where you were going, that was that fairness we were trying to,
yeah, and then
play with.
it's clear and there's no ambiguity in what our intent was. And then we pick up the final resolution or language that you want to make sure we have marked about the whether it's a, I don't call it institutional change, but whatever the proper terminology is to slide from the old definition to the new.
Yes, sir.
Administratively, I guess is what I'm saying.
Do you recall, Christopher, I understand that it was one dissenting vote on the P&C committee against it. Do you recall what the objection was? Just out of curiosity.
I was in transit after court and wasn't there, I don't know if it's fair to ask Mike.
I'm trying to remember.
We have a P and Z board member here.
I'm not even sure if I remember who voted against it.
I mean, that's immaterial. I was just,
Yeah.
I was just trying to.
If I recall, it was maybe just not enough information for whoever it was, maybe just not enough clarity on exactly what this was
I think it
doing.
was just not understanding what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
So there was a reluctance to vote for it.
And I get
I might have been
it, in
able to
all
help
fairness, I
about
do
what
get
they
it, you know, from somebody sitting in that audience, we're talking about, you know, removing 7.3 ordinance. Unless you've been through this process for now, you know how many meetings you've been in about it in a discussion and getting the full grasp of the impact of what it's gonna do to the community, I can see where it could be taken that way. Not necessarily on the board, but I get it. You're good. I know it's for the betterment. All right, discuss the 2023 budget. Or anybody have any other questions from Christopher? I'm sorry. Okay, all right. Discuss the 2023 budget and budget resolutions. Christina?
Yes, I originally put this on the agenda to vote tonight, but the email sent
That's
out
right.
to review the state law. With our public hearing today, we have to wait a week before we can vote on these.
I knew there was something about it, I just couldn't remember
So
it.
I just went ahead, I decided to leave it on the agenda just because this will be the last time y'all do it, to discuss it.
All right.
Until we bring it for a vote.
Ms. Tom, we're pretty lean when we look at the bottom line here now.
Mm-hmm.
Every department head you've met with understands, but
I think it's gonna take the next 4 or 5 days to finally get it. We're gonna go down to the wire.
Yeah, I think there's still one department holding out.
so we're 1.52% over, so.
All right,
And
consider,
please remember on that too, that we made sure our revenue numbers were conservative.
So we potentially could be up at the,
It could be more.
yeah.
It could be 2 to 3%, but we have projected our revenues to be very conservative because we are predicting that
A turnaround.
next year will turn out.
Yeah, I think that's realistic.
consider establishing a study committee, gentlemen. Terry, would you like to lead us off on this one?
I'd be glad to. Or we put it off till the end to go, we give my other 2 items on the list.
Oh,
We'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and get those other 2 out of the way.
That'd be fine.
Sort of the way of a request, we talked about this some. I'd like to request we have a work session specifically for the discussion of our project list. So we can sit down and put our heads together and sort of prioritize those. And obviously that's in view of the ARPA funding and their deadlines. But specifically have a work session for that. And also I'd like to add to that work session, Chris, since you're here, give us an update on where you feel the pulse of where you feel like we are with our moratorium, what you feel like we're safe to release, or if there are areas that we need to extend. I think that'd be a good setting to not now, but in that work session when we set that up.
Yes, sir.
So that'll be,
I'll give it to you right now.
for having a work session setting. The other thing, and I want everybody to put this on their calendar, a meeting on October 21st, it is scheduled. And I think the title of it is Chamber of Commerce holding a State of Education meeting. As part of that meeting, Anna has arranged for Dr. Jeff Dorfman, who's the Chief Economic Advisor to the Governor, and also a very respected UGA economics professor, to give a presentation that would cover the effects of different types of development on local and county budgets, local county and school system budgets. And it's so important that as much as we can, he has a lot of national research in addition to specific county research in Georgia that we can gain much information from. And my request is, excuse me, as much as we can do so, for that to be a mandatory meeting for the commissioners. Also, as much as we can do so, that'd be a mandatory meeting for the planning committee, the steering committee of the comprehensive plan. The Board of Education will also be mandatory for them, and again, as much as we can, to really urge our mayors to be there. It's really critical information that I think is fundamental as we build toward this comprehensive plan. So ask all of y'all to put that on your calendars. And by the way, Commissioner Bay, your boss had already said you're going to be there. He's going to have you a substitute.
Well, I'll actually be in Tennessee.
Oh, no! Change of plan.
He ain't seen that vacation notice, that.
Change of plan.
He has not seen that, but no, I have to go to a wedding in Tennessee.
That's a Friday.
Yeah, that's right.
Zach, if you'll go ahead and run that in the paper at the public meeting.
Yep, obviously there's going to be more than two of us.
Yeah.
So
What time is it?
I think it's up to and including lunch, at least it's late morning.
Okay.
Starts.
I can tell you
Well,
tomorrow. I'll send you email
I'd
tomorrow.
like to get that information, make sure. I don't want to tell you something's wrong with it. I think,
Yeah.
Dr. Dorfman's presentation is scheduled either for 11 or 11:30, somewhere in there.
So, but the whole meeting starts at like 9 or something? All right, you'll put it in that email to us.
Yeah,
Good.
I'll send it to you.
I should have gotten that information. I apologize.
It's funny. I read that, and then I sent an email to Bill Toomey from ACCG, and he responded back and said, I didn't put the two and two together, and I let Christina read it. Dorfman, wow, you're bringing out the big guns.
Yeah.
So undoubtedly, ACCG recognized him as wow, good job. As a matter of fact, that's what it said, good job, well done, for even scheduling that. So it is very important for all of us to try to do that, but I get it.
Is that gonna be recorded or live streamed on the website?
Not on ours, it won't be on.
It depends on where we hold it, but,
It's supposed to be at PLZ 2, the Board of Education.
okay, it might be recorded then.
As far as they don't have any recording equipment in there, in that room.
Maybe we can set one up. Come on.
All right, here's the other one that
I'll do what I can. That's all we're looking at.
Yes.
I'll do what I can.
It's from 11:30 to 1.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I was looking, trying to look it up. Thank you.
If I could just have a laptop and I could have my laptop and,
I can do that, I can Zoom. I'll go.
I mean, wedding's not till in the afternoon, but it's in
Okay.
Columbia.
We'll all just wish them a good luck.
And go dogs. All right.
Here's the other item that is on the agenda. And I've talked to all the commissioners, I think directly except for Commissioner May, and I've talked to all the other parties that in my mind are involved. But my request is to create a study committee to consider advising us on the best organizational strategy for Madison County to address economic development as we brace for and prepare for impending growth. And my proposal, if you want to hear it, is that, or at least my thoughts on it, would be for the committee to be made up of 2 members each from the Board of Commissioners, the IDBA, and the Chamber of Commerce. And there may you may have some thoughts to add some to that, and I think without question, certainly providing information, Ms. Talbert and Christina will be a large part of that as it goes along. And I actually have some names that I can present if I think it's appropriate to do so. I actually had email conversation with Anna Strickland this afternoon, and she had some different thoughts on her names from the Chamber of Commerce. But in discussion with representatives from the IDBA and the Chamber of Commerce, they feel like it's a very, very proactive, positive, proactive step. My thinking is we're approaching the information to be presented to us from the comprehensive plan. There's likely going to be some need for us to really consider where we are now, where we need to be to better serve the citizens of Madison County. And I think this just gives us the opportunity to have a really thoughtful set of eyes, other than just ours, looking at this current structure that we have, and economic development is just too big an opportunity for us just to sit here and say that status quo is where we need to be. So that is my suggestion or my proposal. I'd love to hear any comments from this group or additional comments other than what we've already discussed.
I'll start off with, I did reach out to Bill Toomey. Hey, Christina, had her on speakerphone. Bill said it was a great idea, considering we don't have it in place now, that he feels like, we most definitely are going in the right direction. He actually encouraged to possibly reach out to see if there's 2 BOE members that would be available, just in that way, it's a nice round wheelhouse, because we are inevitably all involved. Mary Beth is a friend of Anna's, but is the assistant to Bill Toomey. He said they have had several of these lately. Butts County just finished the same type of scenario project, and that he would set up, he was going to let me know in the next day or two what kind of time and date that he could hold. He would be the moderator, him or Mary Beth, one or both, be the moderator, to let us know what's going on throughout other counties in Georgia in every way, whether it be Water, Economic Development, Board of Commissioners, Chamber, how their structure is going, the pros, the cons. I told him that I felt like that, because he said that one of the counties just done it and they only done a 3-hour retreat, and he said as bad as I hate to say it, Todd, it was useless, because in 3 hours you can't get anything done. There's too many questions, and they did not reschedule a solution meeting. I told him I looked at it possibly being an 8-hour with a follow-up 8-hour maybe 2 weeks later, and that way everybody could take all the information heard back, process it, come up with solutions, and come back and work that out. And he said,
I think it had to be multiple sessions because there's so much to cogitate on this.
Exactly. He said, or if you chose not to do an 8-hour and wait 2 weeks for another 8-hour, then I would suggest a weekend and just make a 2-day retreat out of it somewhere, find you somewhere to go and fund it, because inevitably it'll be worth every penny spent. But he would be open to either type, 2 days in a row or 2 days with 2 weeks in between.
He also said that Mary Beth would put all the information together to represent it to the board, and that she would kind of finalize and say, okay, well, we didn't finish this topic, these are the questions we need to pick back up on. So you can actually kind of consolidate.
I think what he had led to was the initial board contact was good, having 2 from every board throughout the county. But then if we wanted to take it a step further, to potentially look at bringing in those same board members and potentially 4 or 5 individuals from the public sector, and to let them hear the plan, so you get an outside source without the inside source, or working along with the inside source. He said everybody does it different, but he will tell you that none of them, every one of them has been a success by having a moderator that wasn't from there or even around, just so they can tell you what the rest of Georgia is doing. Some pros, some cons. Anybody else on the study committee idea?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think we ought to concretely put this together to do it myself. I don't know where that takes us. I was just saying, as a group, an agreement on that we need to do this or whatever, but I think we ought to just sort of go ahead and
Yeah, and obviously, we would have to, create a charge for the group, exactly
Right.
what we want them to accomplish, or where we want them to go with it. It might be a good idea for, that this is out for everyone to hear about, know about, for us to consider exactly the structure that we want, whether we want multiple sessions, or, just sort of go ahead and line that up, and then have that ready to present to this board at our next meeting for vote, and then put it in motion at that time, or put it in gear at that time, assuming it meets approval.
And then the IDA will need to do it, and if the Board of Education participates, that board will need to approve it and appoint their 2 members as well.
So are you taking the charge on that then?
Well, I'd be glad to work with folks that are doing it. I tell you what in my mind, I think it ought to occur, but that didn't.
No, but I'm just, just to make sure that it's, that's who's.
Well, we can reach out, I don't mind reaching out to the Board of Education and talking with
I
Michael.
actually talked to them. I didn't know how appropriate it would be to include them initially, but they're aware of the conversation and do want to participate in it.
Well, I'll help in any way, but, that's, okay.
So we can say moving forward, 2 BOC members, 2 IDBA members, 2 BOE members if they want to participate, and 2 chamber members, and Anna said not staff.
Yeah,
Not chamber
that was
staff,
her
but
conversation with me this afternoon, or email with me this afternoon.
That she would work with us on her chamber.
So we'll try to get the dates nailed down first, and then that way we can try
Well,
to.
we've got time.
Yeah, we've got
But
time.
Bill Toomey, he said that they're pretty scheduled out for a little while, so if we allow the board, I think a month and a half, 3 meetings to, one, get in touch with everybody, get commitments, present our outline of what you want the committee to be. We don't want to rush into this.
Right.
Then that sets us up mid-November, so you can say November, December, let that committee meet a handful of times and get their questions together, and they can start seeing Bill January, see him again in February. They come back and present to us in March, and our comprehensive plan is ready in July.
And just timetable for us to keep things sort of in perspective, big picture. If the committee comes up with suggestions that create some significant changes and maybe even a different department, then we would need time to make all those preparations, because then that becomes a budget issue for 2024. So obviously we don't rush into something to wait so that we miss it, but at the same time it's time critical, and the timing with the completion of the comprehensive plan, I think, fits perfectly into right where we are.
I think it'd be realistic to hope that this committee could report by the end of the first quarter, with something for us to digest. And then, should there be suggestions made about a realignment of services or something like that, then that would give us a quarter prior to the budget process beginning to look at that, because this group or that group will have to reconvene to assimilate,
Consider
structure, budget, and responsibilities, and then if it moves past that point, if it does, then it falls just as another group of line items in our budget, but we don't need to wait until the 11th hour and to say, well, we're gonna do this next year, and say, okay, well, that we need to do a budget adjustment now after we've approved our budget to make this work. I do think that there's been a great deal of criticism, whether it was warranted or not, directed towards the BOC, the Hall Consulting, and the development of the process that created a steering committee for this camp. And whether it was warranted or not is immaterial, but I believe that it would be appropriate to have at least two people, whether they're appointed by this group or a consensus of the BOC, BOE, and IDA, just two people at random, or two volunteers, or whatever we want to call it, so that the community does have an opportunity to not target us again for something we inadvertently did.
Yeah. I agree that there'll be some public input, but maybe we go back and find out, like what Bill Toomey was talking about, too, is that they brought some people in after they had some initial meetings. Because that might be the thing to do, is have the initial meetings, get some questions, get it going, and then have those people, and I guess that's something that can be discussed about how do you pull those.
Setting the whole thing up.
Yeah, setting the whole thing up. Because, I can imagine that a good bit of that first is gonna be, a lot of just sort of foundation, yeah, and getting, you know, what the scope of this is and defining stuff. Even we can give them a charge, you know, they can have a charge, but they're still gonna have to sit there and figure their own scope and what they're gonna do and how they're looking at it, and find out what all the variables are that they need to look at. So I think that sometimes, you know, I just think that would be better to bring in that public sector a little bit later. But I agree, we should do that, and I mean, definitely we wanna have that in there. And, maybe we come out front with that, you know, and maybe this is one of those things where we sort of announce, we're looking for people, maybe they ought to put some kind of resume or reason that they wanna be on there, and why they think they would be good in that position, you know.
I would love to make a comment.
Please do.
Go right ahead.
Well, I mean, I just kind of disagree. I think that if you're gonna put the public, if you're gonna, like you're saying, on that board, if you would please, when we do the structure of that committee, make it to where my office, Tolbert, and Christopher have to be accessible to that board for when they have questions and stuff.
Absolutely.
You know, just from the short time I've been here, as much as I've learned about government to what the general public actually knows about government, it's two different things.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to be sure that everybody has great ideas, and I believe that the public here has great ideas on what they think we could do better, but then when you look at the nitty-gritty, some things we're doing the best we can.
Right. Well, and that's one reason that I think that maybe we should just go ahead and start now with saying that we're gonna bring some in, and go ahead and put it out there. Who would like to volunteer and be that, and give us a resume, give us some choices? Because you want people that, just like I think I said before in the other meeting, we talked about, to be a commissioner, you gotta want to do that at some point, because the pay ain't there, and all the criticism you get out there, so you gotta wanna be there. So we want people that wanna be there for the right reason, and that can add something to the discussion. Okay, so I think it ought to be one of those things that you volunteer, but you gotta put in a little bit of an application of why you wanna do it, and what's your, sort of your qualifications that you, so what can you bring? Ask them, what can you bring to that meeting?
I would bring it up right out the gate and just say, 2 people from every board, 2 people from the public. It's not, it can be a very short list, the short list being 2, but you must have an economic background. If you've not been and or developed and or ran businesses, we're probably not looking for you to be on the board. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of business. No matter if it's a tire store, it don't matter if it's a hardware store, it doesn't matter if it's a winery. You have to have developed business, understood how to maintain employees, pay salaries, pay taxes, just saying. So, we have several multi-million-dollar business owners here in the county. Some retired, some not retired, that we could reach out to and say, would you be willing to submit that resume?
I think that when,
but I think you'll get a good resume.
Wasn't the chamber was talking about having 2 of their members, which that ought to be business owners, right? Or something.
Also, the board members, anyway.
Yeah.
They would select who they feel like would be most valuable under this.
That's right. So, I think these are all good ideas. I don't know that I just narrowed it to, they had to own a business,
The
but,
structure.
but, yeah, the structure that, for people, who's from the public, and, you know, maybe you got 2 or 3 and they got different backgrounds, but they bring something different to the thing.
Yeah, with economic development, you have to
Yeah.
understand.
I mean, I heard somebody say real estate, I guess it,
Yeah.
Virginia may be out there.
I was the winery.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what I'm saying is,
They go hand in
but,
hand.
yeah, but I'm just, yeah, they do. But I'm just saying, I think that, we can send out and find out who's interested and then pick the best folks.
I will say we are on a short leash, so one of the things about this, and it's gonna come back to budgeting, we're not gonna hee-haw this topic. This topic, I think it's a valid topic. I think it needs to come off the ground running, because by March, we have to have a plan, because budgeting is gonna start in March.
We're going to be doing budgeting and have our budget in place before we do millage rate next year.
Correct,
We're
which
gonna
is
do-
July, so we have to
Cart
start in
behind-
March.
The cart behind
So in order for that to happen,
So,
we really gotta hit the ground running.
so can we have, and I'm just throwing a date out there, is November the 28th, is that our last meeting in November? Can we have some outline of what we're charging this committee with by then?
I think sooner than that.
Yeah, I would think sooner than that.
I think we could do that.
Between
We
now
do
and
by the end of October.
Yeah.
I think
Then
we
that's
should do it
October
members
the
by
31st,
I hope,
the 24th.
November
No, we
4th.
do have one that's 31st, that's right.
We got a group.
October 31st then.
I think so, and I think everybody can go home. Terry brought some really good suggestions to the table, on what he would like to see, the same 5 suggestions from each one of you, and at that time, we can reach out and get a couple board members from let the BOE, know what the plan is and that we're requesting, and see if they wanna do that. We will base everything around Bill Toomey's timeframe as to when he can schedule the first meeting, but in between, whether it be in late November, before they can have their first meeting, we'll still be utilizing the months and days prior to by getting our questions solidly discussed and narrowed down by this board.
But we need to, when we go into the work session on the ARPA funding, perhaps by then we'll know a little bit more about what grants we have applied for and may be available that will impact that, and also something that we're gonna have to take into consideration. And I believe it should be part of that conversation is the excess and reserves.
Yeah, so we'll put that on the next work session to talk about those, Missy, the access and reserves. It's not urgent matters, but it is something y'all need to be updated on, so I'll do it under urgent matters in a
Can
minute.
wait just a minute.
Yeah.
To your comment, you're absolutely right. Y'all's too, accessibility is for the whole group, not just for public, is gonna be absolutely paramount, because there's gonna be so many questions. How are we currently set up?
Yeah.
What are some possibilities? How are those budgets set up? Who does audits? I mean, all that kind of stuff. And y'all's information, y'all's knowledge is gonna be critical from.
I just want that to be sure it's known to the public that when we do this, this is not a group that's just meeting and doing stuff, they're actually getting guidance on.
We've been fielding a lot lately about how the IDA is structured. When did it become structured? How did it get to be structured? What do they have power over? What do they not? I mean, it's just, honestly, the public, well, which it was done 50 years ago, you can't blame anybody for not knowing. But either way.
Well, that being said, though, it would be logical that Christina would be the funnel point, for collecting and distributing information to the group. So that way, at the end of the day, we've got somebody that makes everything clear and transparent, what was discussed and what took place prior to, and also,
Tiffany, you had a comment?
Is this an appropriate time to ask questions, or do we need to wait for the?
Give me a minute. I got about 2 more spots, and you can.
We do have a spot for citizen comment.
Road updates, pretty simple. Madison Drive, widening and base is set, for next year's paving project, so that will, definitely fix that for some of the industries. You know, one of the things I wanna look at there on Madison Drive is where our wells are. It may be, it don't belong to us, I think it belongs to the IDBA. We may need to ask them about potentially splitting that property, keeping our well service and having, because we're running out of space there, potentially putting that other portion after you split that property up on the market for added businesses. It's something down the road. The sidearm is currently in Hull, Nice, Sanford, area in the county. Roadside mowing crews are in Pioli, crossing over 174 at Haggard's Crossing. I think that's the second group. Received cross drains, culvert pipes for Kingston Green subdivision. This project is on the list for the first week of October. That's the road update. Again, I want to stress, it's not urgent matters, but it is something you need to know about, because we were made aware of this the other day. Terry was in on it, regarding ARPA funding. I spoke with Rob Leverett Friday morning, at the Board of Education, and there is a qualified census tract which was implemented this past year, and it may mean that a lot of the state of Georgia will not be receiving any more ARPA funds. I can't be positive of this, but as it seems right now, that is a qualifying factor for any grant funding coming up, is a qualified census tract. We never used this before 2022. I will tell you, I've seen the map, and nobody in Northeast Georgia qualifies. Not real happy about that. It looked like the federal government used the HUD qualifications, and the state adopted the HUD qualifications. So Rob is looking into this, but we're gonna have to go to the Office of OPB. We're going to make changes somehow. If not, what they'll do is they'll disperse X amount of dollars in grant funding, and then if they don't give away enough money, then they'll probably open a second wave that will not have to have a QCT, qualified census tract, and then we'll probably be eligible for that money. So, just something for y'all to know about. If we apply for a grant tomorrow, we won't get it, we won't need it because of qualified census tract. I'm a little concerned that this was made aware of to us in that 11th hour of the last grant submittal, that we just done.
Mail found.
Yeah, mail found it, and Office of OPB can't give you an answer. We don't know why it's there, but you gotta have it. Well, you give it, we find out about it literally 6 hours, 8 hours before the deadline of submission.
I'm not sure if that watercraft, if it was required for it or not.
It was brought up then, but they didn't know, and they said, go ahead and submit it. But now we found out since then, when we looked about the senior center and the ag center, that it's a guaranteed qualification. So, not good, but it's something that ain't got nothing to do with Madison County. It's coming from the state level, but it will affect us. That's it on that particular topic. All right, sorry. Anybody else have anything under urgent matters? Hearing none, statements or remarks from citizens. Go ahead, Young. I didn't mean to shut you down.
That's okay. I'm just confused about the whole study committee. Can you expand on why exactly we need it?
Yeah, I can tell you my thoughts on it. It'll be easier for me to read what I put, but and obviously we'd have to develop a charge, establish, looking at the definition of the future role of the Board of Commissioners, IDBA, and the Chamber of Commerce as it relates to economic development. And when you get into that, I mean, it just opens up a lot of different things that can and need to be looked into. One that we talk about a lot of time, what is the best and most appropriate way for the water and sewer to be governed. That obviously will come up part of the discussion, and just anything that can branch off of that. So, but the relationship between those three groups specifically, and the Board of Commissioners, Board of Education, if you want to include that, and then what will everybody's role be moving forward in economic development. So anything that can pertain to economic development, and one subject that's brought up, and I don't want to. I'm not going to, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm trying to drive the direction of this. But as things come up, I mean, one of the concepts that was put out there was even looking at potentially the form of government in Madison County. Do we have the best form of government that we need to have moving forward. So all those questions, in my mind, in the charge, that would be what we'll be expecting them to do, just to look at all this and see, you know, where we are and what we think is the best model moving forward. And they obviously will have to make a presentation, recommendation to us, and it'll be up to this group to decide what if there is a recommendation for change, what of that we're gonna adopt and how that's gonna be put into place. But,
Do you mean by government, what do you mean by how the government, are you talking about a full-time county commissioner position?
Well,
Or, so it's the structure?
there's dozens of different potential structures, but that is one of
But
which.
that's what you're talking about on those lines?
Yeah.
As far as government structures.
Yeah.
Now, again, I'm not promoting anything. I'm just saying that those questions are likely to come up, and we hope that they get some.
No, I understand that. I guess looking on the outside in, government's really good at putting together committees for everything. And it's like, it's the same people that already have these jobs that they're supposed to be discussing, so what is another committee gonna do? I guess that's my question.
Well, that'd be your job to hold our feet to the fire.
Well,
And
I do.
Again, in my mind, to setting this up, as we establish a charge for that group, it'll be our role to set up a specific timeline of when we expect things to happen, things to be reported back to us, for us to make a decision. If there is change, what structure needs, if you talk about a change of government, that's a much bigger picture. That's much more involved than that. But if the group decides or recommends, and this board decides that the water and sewer, or where that's gonna be governed from, changes, then it's up to this board to begin the process of setting up what that new structure will be, creating a new department. So, yeah, but timelines need to be set for all of that. There need to be deadlines, need to be, and all that becomes part of making sure that this is just not another committee activity. You're absolutely right.
It becomes more of defining roles and responsibilities of the different agencies and different groups in the county, and then being transparent with the community so that the county and our citizens know who is responsible for what. Right. And that way we're not scratching our heads, does this fall under here, does this fall? No, there'll be a definition where it is, who's responsible and whose feet to hold to the fire on certain things. Mm-hmm. So it's a more clear definition and avenue for transparency.
And part of the reason these things to be done, when this is Terry Chandler talking. Whenever we operate in a certain way, we get comfortable with that, and that just becomes the way we operate. Whether that's the best way or not, if we don't stop and take time to ask that question, if we just continue to operate under the assumption that what we're doing is fine, then my question for me, and for this committee, and for me every day, is there a better way? If there is, we need to find it and we need to grab it. That's what this is about for me.
What role does the IDBA play in the future comprehensive plan?
They're just another component. They have as much input into the comprehensive plan as will results come out of the comprehensive plan for them to follow. So they're just one more component in it that'll have to, like Terry said a minute ago, that'll have to meet the requirements set by the comprehensive plan to grow the county.
I think we'll get a better answer November 7th.
Exactly.
Ms. Marilyn Hall will present to the BOC board.
I'm sorry?
November the 7th is the first work session in November. Ms. Marilyn Hall, she's gonna present, her and her team will present what they have so far for the comprehensive plan to the board.
That was my next question. I know she's doing so much, but would some of what she's doing, have an effect on this committee as well, or isn't some of what she's doing already?
That all fits together.
Okay, so would you put the people that are on the steering committee for that on this committee as well, since they should have an understanding of how the future growth work sessions have gone?
I think that's possible. If we're sitting here talking about public representatives, I really quickly pick two off that board that I'd
And I'm just thinking they're already in the process
that's a good
of
point.
growing the county, which definitely has an impact on the businesses coming in, the industrial development. So Yeah, it seems to me like we're already working on that, but then we're about to disconnect the steering committee and start another committee. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, but keep in mind that their steps, they're all one step leads to another step. So, to reiterate, in a way, what Terry said maybe a little bit differently, is over the past year and a half, this board has focused on one thing, and that's being proactive to the county, making sure that the moves that we make are the right moves. And to what Terry said was, we want to continue to know that we're making those right moves. This comprehensive plan, by going out and paying the money to have an outside source do it for us, is going to give us guidance and wisdom to move the county. So we need to make sure from an inside source that we have the right form of government to move forward, the right water department, the right chamber, the right economic development, because all these are just steps in going forward. I applaud the thought of even bringing this up, because it ain't always about how, well, that's how we've done it for years. Well, it may not have been, it may have been right for that time.
I'm not suggesting it's not a good
No,
idea.
and I know you're not.
I'm just trying to bridge everybody together and to maybe bring in that IDBA, bring them into this work session.
And that's exactly what these meetings will be about. Who needs to partner, who needs to be separate, and how they need to partner, or what that separation looks like. I can tell you, again, this board has leaps and bounds done things that this county's never done in 20 years, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus by saying that, but we're not kicking the same can twice. Sometimes it seems like it takes a long time to kick the can, but right now we're held up in the comprehensive plan. But once we have that in our hand, it's going to be Katie bar the door as to how because we'll have to move quickly. Because whatever you do in that first year of understanding your comp plan and setting the rules for that comp plan is what's going to determine what the next 5 years looks like. So you can't wait 5 years to implement it. You got to do it now while it's fresh. But I think it's a great idea, and I do see good results coming out of it. As Terry said, there's multiple forms of government. What we have now might be the best. We may find out that what we've got's the best. We don't need to touch that, but that form of government's not right, or that over there is not right. So it's an opportunity to take your car in the shop and just say, hey, it's running fine, but please check it out. Let's make sure it's going to make it. That's what we're doing.
The steering committee, and the steering committee, and that might be fine to take some of those folks in there, but one thing we do want to make sure we don't is make it so big that it becomes ineffective, because I can tell you, you get committees that are groups together, you get too many, and it just becomes totally ineffective, so. And so Terry bringing this up.
Two from the BOE, not BOE, two from the BOC and two from the IDBA can outweigh two more from the BOE. I'm just saying, it might not be a diverse enough group.
Well, yeah, I think I agree, and that's why I was talking about maybe getting some people just outside the sector, but then you got chamber members in there and all that. So you have a diverse group, but you just got to make sure we don't get it too
balanced.
big.
You got to make sure it's balanced.
Yeah, it's balanced. And that's the reason I'm talking about that when I was stating before that the public people that are on there, they need to bring something to the table. You know what I mean? Not just because somebody wanted to, I'm not saying this would happen, but somebody wanted their name in the newspaper that I was on this committee. You know what I mean? Or comes in with a preconceived idea about how things ought to be done. That's what we want to try to avoid. We want people that are open-minded, that sit there and look at it and look at the facts and make informed recommendations rather than just, hey, this is where I'm headed and this is my agenda. I'm just being honest. That's what I want to avoid with that. But that's a very good idea.
I think that's where Bill Toomey's going to come in and bounce. And when we keep referring to Bill Toomey and his team, that is ACCG. That is where we go for all our instruction, all our classes, all our certifications come from this group of people. They are an unbiased group of people that bringing nothing to the table, but here's the law, And this is what we see work best. And having that equal, I think you're gonna see it a lot more balanced. Anyway, all right, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm waiting, all right. I'm here about my internet service. I've been here before, right?
Correct.
I was back about 6 months ago, I came in here.
Yep.
And it ain't gotten any better, and it's frustrating. Been talking to Mr. Adams now for quite a while. I gotta get up here because I can't hear very well, I think. You guys.
It's okay.
I've been fighting AT&T for 10 years, but rotten DSL, and they tell me, we're not gonna improve it. And I said, well, what about Windstream? Well, Windstream's right up the road, but we've got an agreement that we're gonna serve this part, and Windstream's gonna serve this part. So Windstream's not gonna, there's no competition. It's just cruddy internet service. I don't know if you guys, I know Mr. Adams has the same cruddy internet service. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's not worth a damn, it'd be worth a good newspaper article. We'll say that about it. So I'm with FCC right now with AT&T. So Mr. Adams comes along, he said, well, you know, we had this meeting down at the state capitol, and Jackson EMC was there, and it's True Vista, this new company from South Carolina, and they're gonna come in and put stuff in our county. Wow, that's great. So I go running down to True Vista, I go online, I sign up for, first of all, I've been talking to my neighbors. I don't think any of my neighbors have good internet service either. They're just like Mr. Adams and myself, they're crummy. It's good old AT&T DSL, and they already told us they're not gonna upgrade. So then they say, they come up with this business about this fixed wireless thing, and you go on the internet and you go online, and it says, this is our solution for rural broadband. So I go, can I get on it? No, they won't let me on it. Well, you're not approved, your area's not approved. The FCC won't let us do it. So I complain to the FCC comes back and says, we have no complaint about you getting, so they give me this service. And for the first month it's okay, and now it's worse than DSL. And I'm fighting them again for it.
What is your
So, True Vista. So I go, I get excited with this, True Vista. So I go down to their office in Commerce, and I say, and I've already signed up online. So I go down to Commerce and say, when are you guys gonna come out? I mean, in fact, I'll help pay for it. I'll pay for you trenching it to my house. Just get me some fiber optics. Well, sir, we don't know. I'll check. Somebody in the meantime, I go down the street, and they've got fiber cable right. I'm almost on the Jackson County line. I'm over in Planter Gunnell, off in East Commerce. I'm right down the street from her. So.
Wait, where do you live right now?
Who are you? I mean, so I go down the street, and there's fiber optic cable hanging on a pole. Just sitting there. But it's Jackson County. So I go back to this woman, I say, well, it's just gotta come up my street. And this woman says, well, I'm gonna check you in. So finally I get an answer from her. She's nice. She says, my engineering department says the Rural Development Opportunity Fund, which the government's paying for them to put this stuff in, has not been approved for Madison County. So what's going on, guys? Tell me what you guys are doing to help us get internet service out here. They won't even bring internet down my street, and I told them I'd even help pay for it.
Yeah. Well, I'll be able to, what was your name?
Edmonston, Don Edmonston.
Don Edmonston. So, Rural Development Opportunity Fund was approved for Madison County. Somebody misspoke when they told you that it wasn't.
Okay.
AT&T did get a portion of that money. We saw the maps. I saw not only the maps, I saw the areas of the map and who was awarded. The Stratford community primarily got AT&T. So when they told you they didn't have it, somebody lied to you. Now, I will tell you that AT&T is probably the slowest to react, and I'm not throwing AT&T under the bus, but as far as reaction time from the time they got the award versus the time they're implementing the service has been the slowest. I will say that Kinetic has been the fastest. We just got 1 gig on Bullock Mill. Matter of fact, I was looking at it when you was talking, David Jones. He said, matter of fact, I got so much internet now, I got too much. But he said been able to cut off all his satellite providers and everybody else, and that was on Bullock Mill. But not everybody got that. So I think they've misled a lot of people. So there's fiber going down the road, but then when you call to say, hey, I seen the guys plowed in yesterday, can I hook to it? They're telling people no. Well, I don't know what strings Mr. Jones had to pull, but he got it. And now he's actually trying to help his neighbors get it because it's out there. Charter, I will tell you last week, right?
Last week for Charter, this week for Windstream.
That's right. We signed a letter today and one Friday, letter of support, because there's another round of funding coming. and Madison County sign the letters that they need, that they'll present to the Capitol, or, DOR, I guess, whoever comes out with
Their
the
OPB
funds.
OPB
OPB offices.
So the county, we don't get a say-so on where the internet's at, but we can give letters of support to internet providers for when they go to get grants. So we don't get a say-so on where it goes, but we can at least try to help getting it somewhere in the county.
Well, I made the suggestion, and you guys shot it down. I guess you shot it down. I said, even on this video that Mr. Adams went to, this CEO of True Vista says, we'll come out and brief your county leaders on what we're gonna do. Put her on the spot. She ever come out, I wanna do it next year, or next month, or whatever. Put them on the spot. Because they're not gonna, I work for AT&T. I know what a crummy corporation they are. You don't have to tell me how crummy they are. I don't think they're gonna stay in business. I'm gonna sell my stock, to be honest with you. I think they're just not concerned about servicing customers.
Well, I can tell you.
Now, I don't know about True Vista.
Yeah, so.
But they're a smaller outfit out of South Carolina, and they're
Correct.
coming into commerce, and now they say to get to Madison County. But they're telling me, now you say it's wrong, I'd like to see this information. I'll take it back and
Correct.
put it in their face and say, that's not true. Here's the
I can
information.
get y'all broadband people here to present to y'all, if that's what y'all want.
Yeah, and we've got an RDOF map that shows the award areas.
I'd like to see that, Mike.
Well, I
I
know I had it a year ago, because actually Kinetic's the one that brought it to us, so I may still have a copy on my
I've been
computer.
fighting this battle now for 10 years, and I got on this, there was a task force, consumer reports put together on improving broadband access in Georgia. I even got interviewed by the Washington Post. I got an article about the Washington Post about my crummy internet service here.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this. I've worked in fiber optics for 30 years. So I got some background in this stuff. I'm willing to help.
You probably know David Jones then, that's.
I don't know David Jones.
No.
But I'm retired. I can do this. This sort of irritates the hell out of me.
It's frustrating to me that we have it down the main corridors, but we don't have it to the home. That's the frustrating part to me. And I think what they're doing is they're having some issues, maybe trying to find enough workers to do the drop plows versus the main cable.
Of course. But it's a squeaky wheel thing.
It is.
If you don't squeak, everybody else is gonna get it. And they're over doing it in Jackson County, all over the place.
Well, right now, they're fighting amongst yourselves. So right now, it's a dog-eat-dog world with True Vista, Kinetic, and AT&T.
I don't agree with that. There's nobody want my business. There's nobody on my street want my business. They just soon I go crawl in a hole.
You
I
have,
don't
Well,
see
they're
anybody
gonna want the
backing around.
density, that's what they're wanting.
That's right.
That's what they're fighting
want the
for, is the
subdivision.
density. They don't wanna catch that last mile. So I will tell you this also, so we sent those two letters this week. We have not sent a letter on behalf of True Vista because they haven't requested one. True Vista seems to be working primarily in Jackson County, but they are not working in Madison County that I'm aware of.
AT&T hadn't asked for one either, have they?
AT&T has not asked for a
That's
support
right.
letter neither.
So that,
Could care less about it.
Well, AT&T were the ones that was coming down 29.
But they're the ones that's servicing you, and that's the one they got the agreement, so the other folks are not gonna move across what AT&T's got.
That's right. You know,
And-
it's
and-
like a
and so-
monopoly.
But see, that's,
It's a kind of
exactly,
monopoly.
but we don't, unfortunately, the BOC doesn't control any of that.
I don't know.
You guys have some power. I've worked for these big corporations. They care about what the community says. And also, we're giving them, the feds give them money. So they're not only do they care about their community relationship, but they're also getting money, and they're supposed to be doing that money to give us rural people internet service, broadband service.
what other services on your road? You have AT&T, what's down the road, did you say?
Well,
Windstream.
I heard, so I'm calling this technician, he comes out there one day, I'm fussing about my DSL, he says, I said, well, how come there's nobody else? He said, well, we've got an agreement that Windstream services from, I think it's Adams Clark, north, and AT&T gets from Adams Clark south.
Yeah.
And what the heck do I get? I'm getting messages like, you ought to be happy you didn't got internet service at all. Quit complaining about the fact we're not meeting your, Mr. Adams, he won $4,000 back from them, fighting, fussing, because they weren't providing what they said they were gonna provide.
Good thing you don't live in Harrison, because they are on satellite only in Harrison.
I'm sure that it's worse than I can.
And truly, that was the award. The award for Harrison was a satellite district. It wasn't Kinetic, it wasn't AT&T, it wasn't them, it was satellite.
Well, I was gonna sign up for this Starlink junk, and I started reading about that stuff, and I said, oh, this doesn't look like it's.
Doesn't the director of our IPBA, isn't he a lobbyist for True Vista? Can't he help him?
You would have to contact him, I don't have
Well, I'm
that.
gonna put this horse back in the barn.
I mean, you guys are talking about economic development.
Excuse me, sir, can we get an RDOF update on who's providing what, when, where? And then that gives us an opportunity to reach out to any of these providers, and if need be, then, I think the regulatory agency is Public Service Commission, so there should be somebody there that we can talk to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind asking questions, and,
Well, yeah, I mean, we've
I can't
asked
promise
multiple
anything,
times,
but
the only
let's-
problem is they won't tell us when, because they don't know when. The second is they won't tell you where, because they don't know where.
We can
Well,
They
comply.
will give
just
us,
know
I've specifically asked for a list of roads that they're gonna be on in Madison County, and all I get is what I sent y'all, just the pictures of
Of
the color
a different
pictures,
color on a
like
map.
those areas, I don't.
Well, I don't, forgive me, but I don't recall that, if you could
Okay.
recirculate that,
Yeah.
and then we'll go from there.
I can,
Like I
and then the people that I reached out to, the certain, like, specialty project managers, I can reach out specifically for his area and road.
Victor, you had something on this
I know
topic?
Public Service Commission can levy fines, so put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of these internet problems will probably solve by next year. The company Starlink, owned by Elon Musk, will offer internet services to individuals. And it's a complete spectrum of internet, 5G, it covers everything. It's gonna be a major competitor on the internet market, and you don't need AT&T anymore.
I signed up for Starlink 2 years ago. Oh, this is great. Oh, you'll get it in August of 21. I didn't get it. And then I start reading that Elon's coming on saying, well,
All right, Mr. Chairman, what
it's not
else you
gonna
got?
make it. That's not the
Public
case.
is still speaking.
The public has had plenty of time to speak about that particular item. I've made a motion that we get some information, and I'm ready to move on.
Okay.
The public is still speaking.
It's all right.
This is a concern, guys.
It is.
I think I have your email, I can email you,
We get you.
whenever I find it.
We get some information, we can complain.
Talking about
to the
economic development, that
Public
kind of
Service
stuff.
Commission.
This is economic development.
It is, you're right, sir.
This is helping our county.
Thank you.
should call Frank, I think he can help you. Frank in.
So what kind of role is Paladin Wireless?
They're out.
The reason I asked that question, there was a radio announcement, they bid for areas through the FCC, and they got 4 counties, rural counties, and they, for whatever reason, Madison County was not in that award that they got. I don't really know, is that even a viable option?
Was that recently?
Not
Wow. So Paladin is,
I mean, that'd be like, what county?
it's not
Culver,
good.
Hancock, Franklin, and very, very rural areas.
Yeah.
Oglethorpe County paid $380,000, I wanna say, to Paladin for internet, and they have nothing. And they had no way to get their money. And it's horrible.
I work,
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a legal term, but I know they can't get gas money. With that being said, any other statements or remarks from citizens, any statements or remarks from commissioners? Rodney, you here to update us on something, you just here, buddy?
I'm just here.
All right.
Dedicated servant of God.
No other remarks from commissioners, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Frank, that money was considered investment money. That's how you know that.
Yes, $380,000 over the planning, because they can't get none of it back in the
So
contract.
it was really mean for that area, and they may put it back like as
Well,
well.
when I entered an agreement with them,
It's definitely here, and
they
they
had
do
to
it
pay
everywhere
rent on
else.
the tower, they had to
Pilot
purchase
means
equipment.
they're
They got
gonna
nothing.
run it towards 6
I'm gonna reach out to you
days, 90 days,
tomorrow.
see if they wanna adopt it.
I'll answer
Ask
that later.
them.
I've got money invested.
To leave it that, for that.
For that section.
I'm gonna reach out to them and see.
What a lot of people don't realize from.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to them tomorrow, and see if they can tell me if your road is on their project list.
I didn't know.
When they receive their money. That's
So,
the only information
you can't build a bamboo bicycle.
that I don't know. I don't know when they receive their money. I know that some of them have it, they're trying to grant me.
Then when they adopt it, you keep it.